You do not become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge. But it can only emerge if something fundamental changes in your state of consciousness. Eckhart Tolle. Welcome to the Lost Traveler Podcast. I am your ever-loving host, Henry Cameron Allen. And today I have a guest that I'm really fascinated by. He's an author of what, 3 books now?
Two, and the third one's coming.
Third one's coming. So we'll talk about that. This is Michael McGinnis Jr., everybody. Everybody calls him the Jungle Writer, and I want to know why. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm called the Jungle Writer because I write in the middle of jungle in Costa Rica, and that's where I live, and been here for a long time, and 33 years. And yeah, I find it to be the best place to channel these works, and then a funny synchronicity with that is while I was writing the second book, something came through to add in a jungle rider character. So there's kind of a meta thing going on in the second book. So that happened as well. And people who know me will figure it out, and others might as well because we put it in the bio. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Don't you love it when that happens? I'm all
Yeah.
about synchronicity. It's kind of amazing too. I'm living in Spain.
Oh, wow.
I'm in a tiny little remote village in the southwestern part near the border of Portugal, and it's a beautiful place. And like you, I feel like I am lushly creative here, and it's opened up something in me that, as an artist, as a writer myself, and a playwright and director, theater person, singer, it's exactly where I want to be. What is it about Costa Rica that grabbed your attention from the beginning and has captivated you since?
I came down here when I was in my early 20s. I Before that I had this dream to go to Costa Rica and just surf and live there. And I was very into surfing, and I sort of had this inner conversation inside of my head that said, "Oh, you can't do that," and I guess there was definitely some input of a person that I was growing up that would constantly tell me that I can't do anything, and so I sort of believed that, and then I went to a course in the United States that helped that be removed from my inner conversation, and I literally the day I got out of that thing, I called a friend. I said, "Let's get on a plane and go to Costa Rica." And he's all, "Why?" And I go, "Because there's surf there." And this is pre-internet, of course, and in the 90s and early 90s, and we came down, and I stayed, and he went back home.
Wow. And you've been there ever since.
Been here ever since. Yeah, 33 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm all for following that impulse. They say that there's a spot, at least one spot on the planet that is I guess, the soul home of each of us. And when you arrive. I've had a few in my lifetime, and I love where I live now, and I want to plant a root here. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So tropically, it's a not a big jump really, because the weather's nice there too in SoCal, right?
Well, I live in this lush jungle with monkeys and pumas. I have a monkey that's, I don't know what's going on, but for the last 3 weeks, it's a she. She's been coming and banging, picking up part of the roof and banging it, hitting it on two parts that I don't know what she wants, but she seems to be not happy about something. So this, this morning at 5 a.m. and it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I got to do something. I got to figure something out here because it's still too much.
Yeah, they'll tell you if they want something, but it's up to us to figure it out. I used to have monkeys growing up in Brazil. My dad was a cultural diplomat for the US government, and So we lived in many countries growing up, and that's what gave me my taste for travel and adventure and seeing other cultures and other cuisines. And very often in Brazil, at least at the circles we were in, rather than bring a bottle of wine as a host gift for when you're going to a dinner party, someone will bring you a beautiful bird in a cage, or they'll bring you a monkey, or they'll bring you a goat or a chicken, and so we had quite a menagerie. And that also gave me a deep love of animals and all that.
Yeah.
But I think travel, stepping out of your comfort zone, burning those old tapes, that are implanted in us from an early age, saying you can't and you should, and I know who you are, kind of a thing, when people really don't. Um, that those are really, really strong barriers to finding a sense of sovereignty, and I think a lot of young people in the world are struggling with that right now. And I know you've struggled. I in your bio you referenced that you had some mental health challenges growing up, and um, I would be honored if you would open your heart a little bit and share how you got from there to here, because you seem to have it pretty together today.
It's been a, it's been a hell of a journey.
Yeah, amen, brother.
And I wouldn't change a thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that, in a way that could sum it up, but I'll go further. Yeah, like, I grew up in a home where my father left when I was 9, and my mom was left to, raise us on our own, and she worked hard, and we were what they would call latchkey kids. We'd always let ourselves in. We made our own food.
Yep.
Yeah, and great, and then I guess, yeah, the divorce thing was really, really hard on me, according to my stepmom.
Mm.
She told me, and my sister took it a little bit better, and then my mom, at one point, a guy moved in, and he was quite brutal,
Mm.
and in all ways, but mainly verbally, just out of control, abusive, like, "You're stupid Mexican, you'll never be anything." He'd follow me around the house, real big, tall guy, all day long, all night. It just wouldn't stop. It was like something had obviously happened to him. Of course, it wasn't obvious to me at the time, but
Right.
something had happened. Yeah, something had happened to him when he was younger, and we found out later, it was his father and all this stuff. And so he was just reenacting that. Of course, it didn't really help me, and I would go to bed literally every night bawling when silent, so he couldn't hear me. And at the time, my mom didn't do anything about it, and I guess I for sure I blame my mom as I got older, and then I went and did that course, and that really, like, showed me, wow, no matter what happened, my mom was doing the best that she could with what she had at the time.
Exactly.
And yeah, and I had lived in this, maybe afterwards, for sure, some victimhood, or at least anger with her. And we that thing that released that, and then I got on the phone and I said I apologized to her for blaming her, which is one big part of this process. And she just started crying and saying, "I was so afraid of the guy, and I didn't know that." And it's like this amazing experience, and we're best of friends now, and we have been ever since. And um it's like we're very close, and it's great. And then, life does its thing, and had other things with girlfriends and leaving and abandonment and this and that, just boom, boom, one thing after another. Becoming successful financially, and realizing that that doesn't make me happy. There's still this feeling of emptiness on the inside, and
Right.
becoming suicidal at one point, and
Mm.
crazy story about that too, where I was kind of forced into a car while I was in this process. I went back to the States to do the deed, and I didn't have a car because I couldn't even get my driver's license together. I was so messed up mentally, even though I had everything. My buddy gave me his car, and I drove it, to go do it. And in the CD player was this guy talking, and he was talking about something really weird I'd never heard before. He was talking, if you're having a relationship, and at one point you tell you say you love the person, and at another point you hate them, that relationship is is done. And I'm like, listen to this guy. Who is this guy? So I pull over and ask my friend. He goes, that's Eckhart Tolle. And I go, who's that? And you know, so
Amazing, amazing master. What an amazing, transformative. If you have not heard of Eckhart Tolle, look him up. In fact, I'll put a link in the description to what was the book or the workshop that
the Power of Now was the book. And
I'll put a link to that. Yeah.
yeah, I ran to Blockbuster Video back then, and that still existed. And I'm not a reader, and so I just like grabbed one of those yellow Walkman things with the
Yeah.
CDs and got all of his CDs and went back to the hotel room, plugged in, and that was it. I would never think of hurting myself again and leaving this life, because it really shows you that it's got nothing to do with the external, what I can get or how great it's going to be when this happens, or how terrible it was back then, or how great it was. Oh, this sucks. That goes away. And then all of a sudden you're just, you're left with the present moment. And wow, man, it just changed my life. So I owe everything to that man. I really do, you know, when it comes to me continuing on in this life. So that was one of my two transform. The first one was that course, and then bam, this transformation. And then I had some other ones along the way with, visionary experiences, we'll call them.
Sponsorship and listener support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a volunteer-operated charitable foundation under United Charitable, a 501c3 public charity. Peregrine is the proper noun we now use to describe a parent who endures the loss of their beloved child, forever carrying their memory and embarking on a lifelong journey of grief, resilience, and hope. The Lost Travelers Club provides programs, resources, and empowerment opportunities for peregrines globally who are navigating their grief journey. Parents of child loss, getting there together. You can support this important work by becoming a sponsor of this podcast or visiting www.losttravelers.club for more information or to make a donation. Thanks for listening and for your continued support. We're starting to get affirmation from the scientific community and the medical community that those things actually do open us up and allow us to transcend our challenges. You know, with every challenge comes an opportunity. It's a huge lesson that I've learned, and I know that there are people who walk the planet. Some of them we will meet, other ones we won't, but they'll drop a pearl into the palm of your hand and give you a lesson that will pivot you in a completely different trajectory for the rest of your life. And that doesn't only affect your life, it affects everyone around you because of the transformation in you. Right. Very similarly, I grew up, in a broken home. My father's second marriage was to a woman who had major challenges with her own biography, let's say. And I was the whipping boy, and that's how she channeled her stuff was at me. And it's been a lifetime of finding my ability to burn those old tapes, to understand that scar tissue is stronger than intact skin, and my pain is my purpose, my pain is my power. I wish more people could understand that. And we have listeners in 45 countries, and so I'm really appreciative, brother, that you're opening yourself up and talking about these things, because especially for men, there's such a stigma around mental health. There's such a stigma around the choice of ending one's life. I'm a member of the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. It's the acronym is NAASCA, NAASCA. I'll also put a link to that because they have wonderful resources for people who are struggling still, as adults to heal the inner child that is still suffering. And we all have it at some point. And I'd love to hear where, if you can identify a pivotal moment where you shifted from that little scared kid inside of you who could not figure out how to move on to self-parenting, right? And healing the abandonment. My parents split when I was 6, and we saw my mom maybe once a year because we were in another hemisphere. We went to, travel with my dad. And so we didn't get enough of her. And so I had some deep-seated abandonment stuff that was only compounded 15 years ago when I lost my son to brain cancer when he was 13. I was a single dad. He was my only child. And I went through that whole guilt trip and why couldn't I save him? And, what triggers were coming up in me. One of the best things I did for myself was to get diagnosed with PTSD, CPTSD. CPTSD means complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which actually most cases is tied to early trauma, early childhood trauma, whether it's abandonment or abuse. And so that's given me amazing tools, and it has allowed me to identify those pivotal moments and self-parent, because there's no threat anymore except in my imagination and memory, right? That threat isn't real. So I get to be the parent that I needed to my inner child. Do you experience it that way?
It's been interesting in the last few weeks, actually. I've been really questioning something. When I went to that course, what I really learned was that I got away from the blame thing where I pointed the finger at someone and said, "You did this to me." That went away. And when that was a big and also, what do you make things mean in the world,
Mhm.
And so that all was zapped, and I realized that the world has this blank canvas, and at this course they say life is empty and meaningless, and people get quite offended by that, and it's because they want to think that there's meaning, and truly there isn't until we say that there is, and we give it that. It's like there's a blank canvas. So I loved it. I mean, everything they said, like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't quite took me to the last stage where I got it, where the big
Yeah.
explosion happened. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. And I couldn't wait to get on the phone and say, hey, I'm sorry to my mom, and she was like the big one for me at the time. And yeah, and it really healed everything there. And then all the medicine work and all the psychological and all this, and realizing that it was perfect that my dad left them, because I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now talking. I wouldn't have had everything is perfect how it happened. And for some reason I still have this and I just realized, I'm starting to just realize these things, like I'll be in a relationship with a girl, and if I start to feel like she's leaving, I'll panic. And it's like, really, and I know most people say, yeah, me too. But it's really, I've traced it back. It feels like it was because of my dad leaving. And then after my dad leaving, when I was 17, I fell in love with this girl, and then she did something, and then she ended up leaving, and it was like everything just got ripped from me. So I think maybe there's some kind of something lodged in there that I still today, even with all the spiritual awakening and knowing that it's perfect, and that I loved for my ex-girlfriend. She was so great, for everything was a great experience in my life, and for my dad leaving and everything perfect. And still, it's like there's a freaking chip in there. And I do not know. And so I talked to a lady the other day, as a psychologist, and we were talking about, I go, what do you think? I mean, and she went through this whole process where, well, there's this thing where you go and you give comfort to that inner child that just wants to be safe. And when I heard that, I'm like, the reason why it didn't resonate was because I don't feel unsafe anymore. I'm great. It's all good. I
Right.
have complete compassion for that little boy. I have compassion for the people that left. How is me going back and going, and I can do it now. I can sit there, yeah, I remember the
Right.
time this happened.
Right.
I don't know. And I, what I came to myself was that, and I'm just guessing here because, you know, life is like that. We
Yeah.
do our best to try to figure this shit out, you know, just like trying my best, you know? Um, and I'm thinking that maybe there is no way to remove it until it's ready to dissolve its way out. And maybe it's merely just me recognizing, oh, look, you're having a reaction. That is something to do with when you were a kid. Just the awareness around it. And that's it. Because I really don't believe if I go into some kind of like hypnosis or me just like rethinking, living that thing and
Right.
going, oh, poor little guy. There's no poor little nothing. There's no, I don't,
Right.
so maybe it just takes its own time and I got not much to do with it other than just surrounded in awareness, you know? I don't know.
Well, none of us knows. That's the beauty of it. That's the, to embrace the mystery of it all. And when I talk about the inner child, I'm not talking in the conventional sense, I guess. I'm the inner child that we carry is still it to me, it embodies that childlike sense of wonder that we have about the world and about the processes of the universe and how micro nano micro nano micro nano tiny we are compared to everything in the known and unknown outside of
And
us,
at the
and
same time, we're everything. It's a paradox, right?
for everything. Exactly. But that's where I live. I get you live there too. I mean, that's the mystery that I'm exploring. I'm working on a project right now that I'm calling quantum grief. And grief isn't just about the passing of someone you love or care about. Grief could be over anything, over change of environment. It could be a change of the state of the world. It could be grief over the loss of my hair. It could be grief over the aging process, right? The loss of our youth, and what does that represent? How do we find, I'm 57 now, and I'm
Me
finding,
too.
yay, it's a great age, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah,
But I'm finding
it's
that there
cool.
are things that nobody warned me about that are
Yeah,
happening
yeah.
to my body and my brain and my chemistry. Have you ever heard of andropause? Nobody ever
No.
talked about andropause.
Uh,
Look it up, everybody. It's like menopause, except it has nothing to do with menses because men don't menstruate. But it is very similar. Well, maybe some do, but
you might get a lot of pushback on that one nowadays in certain
that's
states
right.
of
Well,
California.
I know. I no hate, no hate. Uh,
I'm joking. I agree.
but we do go through physiologically similar changes, and nobody talks about it. That's another stigma that we have as men, is that no, we're not allowed to talk about what's going on with us. And there are hormonal changes that are akin to menopause. We go through, our bodies changing and our systems changing and our digestion and uh, our nervous system. And so another project I'm working on, I'm calling Agecation, is about bringing to light some of these things that we've not been taught, so that those of us who are heading into our golden years have a little bit more in our toolkit. I can't do as much physically as I used to. My body rebels. My sleep is different. My appetites are different, both with food and sex. It's a very, very important conversation to have amongst men. Hi, this is Henry Cameron Allen. For all of us, especially in these times, life is a journey fraught with challenges. But I'm convinced that the keys to unlocking your full potential are already within you. That's why I started Guy Wire Counseling and Mentoring. A guy wire is a stable cable that lends stability to a freestanding structure during unstable times. As your mentor and counselor, your guy wire, I will guide and support you as we discover the power of your inner awareness. I'll help you identify your purpose even through your grief. I'm an internationally certified grief and survival counselor, focusing mainly but not exclusively on men's mental health, and I'm a lifetime member of the Complementary Therapists Accredited Association and the International Holistic Therapists and Course Providers. I know that the world is a fractured place. I believe that together we can simplify your grief journey and achieve self-actualization by recognizing the common threads that bind us all, universal life skills. With the support, the stable support of a guy wire during your unstable times, you can develop the skills you need to stand strongly, solidly on your own with confidence and grace. Guywire is a free service to members of the Lost Travelers Club and a low-cost alternative for everyone else. Let's spend an hour together and see where it takes us. You have nothing to lose. Visit guy-wire.org now to start your journey toward your purpose. Thanks. Do you think there's value in that? In having education at every stage of life?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Also touching on what you were talking about, the inner child.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about, when we say that, we're really talking about the God within, right? Because
Yep.
I look at it, and I know a lot of other people do, and other people have other ideas, but like, I believe that capital C creation created us so that it could have an experience of something other than perfection of all light and whatever the hell it was before.
Right.
I don't know, but and to be able to know itself. And so while we're in that wonderment, it's really because it's in that. So I
Yeah.
agree with the inner child part, and that's what we're here for. And yeah, and having this discussion about for men, and yeah, all of it in every stage. And to also know that, it's interesting because women seem to, on the spiritual path, as a whole, they come along sooner than we do, in most cases, where they
Yeah.
start to really get into these alternative this and that, and that's natural, that's what's happening. But as the men get older, and we call it the afternoon of our lives, where you and I are right now, we start
Yeah.
to scratch our head and say, wait a minute now, there's got to be more to getting girls and making a bunch of money and chasing this or chasing that or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I are talking about. So I think all of it should be, I mean, can be just explored, and I think there's great value for anybody out there, who's also going through these things to hear somebody else bounce off of another person,
Midlife,
their life.
right? I need a big car. I need a gorgeous person on my arm, male or female, because I don't want to get pushed back about that either. Or both, one on each arm. Why not?
That's right.
There are as many ways of being a human being as there are human beings, and we have to stop pointing fingers, as you say. My grandmother used to teach me, when you're pointing a finger at someone else, you've got three pointing back at yourself, honey.
That's right.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. And
Mhm.
and so this is a great opportunity with this podcast. The reason I started it was because I did not hear many people talking in terms of universal life skills. And these are the things that every human being on the planet, more than 8 billion now, are not only learning, but applying daily to our lives, no matter our geography, no matter our age, no matter our socioeconomic status or culture, religion, spirituality. These are all universal life skills. So we're talking about communication skills, emotional literacy, financial literacy, environmental literacy, sexual literacy, technological literacy, right? A whole lot of literacy.
Mhm.
And we're all learning them. It's not a question of whether or not we learn them. We will, all of us. It's in what measure do we learn them and from whom? It took Eckhart Tolle to teach you a thing or two, to put tools in your kit that you didn't have there before. But you can't use his tools the way that he uses them because you're not him. But what you were able to do, it sounds like, which is something that I promote a lot, is to synthesize the tools that he opened up to you, synthesize them with the tools you already have in your kit, and create unique tools for your existence and your consciousness. And I'm with you about, it takes the human consciousness for reality in whatever interpretation to exist, a concept even of God or creation. It takes the human consciousness in order for that to even exist. And so we're powerful beyond measure. We are the universe experiencing itself. I love that motif because we're made of all the same stuff, right? All the same minerals, all the same energies. It's all frequency. We know that, right? This is something that these tiny little human being brains have been able to figure out. There's still a lot we don't know. And that's where the arrogance of humanity sometimes gets to me. I was having a conversation with a friend last night about, in Congress now, they're presenting all these videos and documents about UFOs and, stuff like that. And I keep thinking to myself, why would any advanced society way out in the far reaches of space want to know about us? We're not that interesting even to ourselves, right? And if they're advanced, why are they bothering?
Who knows? I mean, maybe it's interesting to see our non-advancedness. There might be something. There is a fascinating thing to how we roll, how we've rolled out this thing, and how it's now falling apart. I think there's a significance there, and it could be a very galactic one. But we don't know. And like you said it yourself, none of us really know. We're not using all of our power. Obviously, we're using a very small bit of it, and I think there's so much more to go. And I think that's also what medicine, plant medicines can show people that are ready is the vastness of what's really behind the third dimensional curtain, this sort of prison planet that we're in, if we want to call it that, or this maybe simulation, however we're going to word this thing that we're in. You can really pull that curtain back and go, oh boy, and see that there's much more going on than we could ever fathom, and that's supposed to be this way right now, and because we came down into human form. Exactly. When we leave, who knows? Maybe it all opens up, or it's some other process in an infinite. We're infinite, so it's just going to go on forever. We think of this thing called time. There's not, but it's in us. We got all that. That's why it's so easy once you start to go through these awakening processes that you stay on this path and you keep going, because it's not like when I read something, I go, it blows me away, but it almost feels like a remembering,
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think people interpret that often as past lives, right? Or what's it called when you walk into a place, you're like deja vu, right?
Deja vu, yeah.
I think that's all part of it. And if we look at everything as frequency, I mean, I'm in my 4th season now, and I've interviewed a lot of people. I've had great conversations, and the frequencies are matching up all the time. I've not had one co-host that has been on a completely different frequency to where I'm like, I cannot even talk to this person. I haven't met a whole lot of those people. I see them in social media, but I haven't really connected with those people. And I don't know if that's a frequency that I'm putting out. That's like a force field, that repels people who are operating on a different frequency of reality. But I feel like that it's also magnetic, and it draws people. When you're aware of it, it'll draw people into your circle and widen your circle in that sense.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it on the head I think it's what you're attracting, and that's more the way to look at it rather than repelling. The repelling's happening too, because let's say you were to bring on some insanely woke person that just wants to blame everything and everybody but their own self, and they're
Right.
just sassy and pissed off. Well, they're not going to want to be on your thing anyways. You're not going to draw them in. You don't want them on your, right? So they're
Yeah.
just not going to come. So everything is frequency specific, and the world right now is falling apart and waking up at the same time. That's what our hero in the book says. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree with that, you know, because Rome is in this process of falling right now, and on the other side of this, you know, at some point in this illusion called time, there will be a massive global awakening. I don't know if that's 100 years from now, 500, 6. Yeah, I have no clue.
For an hour from now, maybe an hour
Right.
from
Which
now.
we're a part of it. There's no doubt, and we're in it. But like, there's you know, the fact that we've got everything falling apart at the rate it is pretty it's pretty heavy. You know, I listen to a lot of Charles Eisenstein, and he was
Mhm.
you heard of him, yeah?
Yeah,
And
sure.
yeah, he talks about us that we don't even know what the thing that's coming that's going to really help at some point. We can't even imagine what it looks like. So what we're talking about is a miracle, and
Yeah.
I believe that. I actually know that. I mean, it has to be something like that, because it's not going to be a political leader. We might get one in there that's okay, anti-establishment. Someone like Kennedy comes in and just, like, you know, really helps this censorship crap, or even someone like whoever it is, right? But
Whoever it
not
is.
one of these. Yeah, not one of these pro-establishments. Or more of that's going to be more. It's more shit's coming hard, and we. But it's never really going to heal the polarization, I don't think, until something happens, and I don't know what it looks like, and I'm trying to figure it out, because my book's about this. All my series is about the global awakening, and so I do my best to really listen and try to figure out what could it look like, what might it be like, you know, how can we accelerate.
Hey, are you like me, always looking for ways to make a positive impact in the world? Well, then join me in sponsoring Desire Childcare Organization. We are a legally incorporated, fully volunteer based organization in Uganda, committed to providing essential needs, holistic arts based education, and a safe family environment to 33 vulnerable children, ages 2 to 14. Your monthly sponsorship can help improve the lives of these kids toward a better future. Desire Childcare is different from any other charity I know because, well, we have zero administrative overhead. Every penny goes to the kids. And we have a plan toward self-sufficiency through agriculture, so support is temporary. It's kind of like a leg up. Visit desirechildcare.org to learn more and get involved. Let's empower and inspire the Desire kids together. Thanks.
And that's the power of imagination. We have to imagine it to manifest it. That's why these conversations, these universal life skills conversations, are so important for our time, because it allows us to sort of open our imagination to everything being possible. And everything is possible, right? I don't believe in death anymore. The worst thing that could happen to me has happened to me. Now what? That's the name of my memoir. Now what? Right? Okay. So now I measure everything against that. And when people come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss," I'm like, "Loss? Are you kidding? He's not a set of keys. He's not my favorite scarf. I know precisely where he is. He's just in a different form of energy that it's up to me to connect with. He's fine, as we all will be." Right? People say
As
it's
we all are.
the worst thing that can happen to somebody. I'm like, I can't say that. Even sitting here, I can't say it's the worst thing that could happen to anybody. Was it the worst thing that could happen to me? Yeah, probably. I haven't
Yes.
found anything else. But, you know, before that happened, the worst thing that could happen to me also happened to me in my childhood. And those are those pivotal moments of reflection that we can look back. And of course, we're not going to remember it the way the person we shared that moment remembers it. You're only remembering it from your perspective, and it only lives in your imagination, just like every moment in the future only lives in your imagination. What's real is this moment, and it's surrounded by what I see as an infinite peacock tail of possibilities, right? And the possibilities are all the point B's that you could go toward. It's like when you went to Costa Rica. It was to the average Joe or Josephine, it may seem impulsive, and it may have been impulsive, but you made a choice. You made an active choice to go to that point B. And for you, it felt right. It felt good. It felt safe. It felt that that's where you needed to be.
Yeah.
What I contend when I'm working with clients is that if you make a choice, which that's your only job, is to choose one path from this moment forward. Just choose one. And if you arrive at a point B that does not feel good, safe, happy, or right, effortlessly, magically, it turns into a brand new point A surrounded by an infinite peacock tail of possibilities. And all you have to choose is a different direction. That's the journey. It's as simple as that. I think people work too damn hard at it.
I agree.
But tell me about sovereignty, because that's a really important topic for our time. I'm excited to read your new book because that's really resonant with me right now. The topic of sovereignty, and what does that mean to you?
Well, for me, sovereignty is the inherent God-given right to freedom. So it's the base of what freedom sort of stands on. And right now, there's some players out there and that are doing everything they can to strip sovereignty away from us. And my books are about a bit about that and how to get through this. And it happens again through spiritual awakening, so that you get to the place like what you said, where you said, like, death is the last thing I'm worried about.
Right.
Like, so you can do that because you know without a doubt you're never really gonna die.
That's right.
You know, I think so many people out there believe that, okay, I'm gonna die and I'm gonna be in this black void that's horribly scary forever and ever and ever, or I'm just not gonna, or whatever it is, or I'm gonna burn in a fire. It's got none of that happens.
No.
That's not what this
Right.
is about. We are eternal beings. Another experience is going to, hell is here on earth if you want it, or if it's going to show up for you at times, and so is heaven. It's all right here. It's not anywhere else. You don't have to worry. I don't think people have to worry about that. So for me, it's like really helping others have their own awakening of sorts. And, you know, there's like two kinds of awakening. There's awakening, the inner awakening, which for me is the really important one. And I believe for me, that's the one that should happen first, and really wake up to the program that maybe has been installed in you, as it has for all of us, of good, bad, right, wrong, this, that, you know, this needs to be that way. This should be like this. I don't live in a world of should or shouldn'ts. I have my own moral compass. I know that I don't want to do anything that hurts another person that I wouldn't want done to myself. I wouldn't want to do anyways, because there's nothing. I'm into the, you know, more for you is more for me, and better for you is better for me. And that's the way, you know, that's what happens when you go through this awakening process. And then the other awakening is awakening to behind what's behind the curtain of Oz, and what they're up to. And, you know, well, who is they? Well, that's a big ass question, and there's a whole bunch of them. And
crazy making. It's crazy making.
Yeah. And so sovereignty, it's like it's holding on to that knowing that that's what we have, period, and really standing up for that, and really being vocal, and for the people who are ready to do that. And I know that some people aren't, and so a big part of my books are also about, like, the character in there, the hero Dimitri, tells us to choose our role. So choose our role in this galactic showdown, or whatever you want to call it. We have this apocalyptic showdown that is on right now, and it all, you matter, you mean something, your words do, your energy. And some people, they're going to choose the role of in my case, writing the novel and standing up for sovereignty, and yours is to do what you're doing with podcasts and you're creating the stuff you create. And then another person might not go that. It might just be to hold that high vibration and you know, a lot of praying and meditation, whatever they're going to do. And we do choose the role rather than just not, because I think what happens when you don't choose the role is you're either going to become very terrified about this, or you're going to just go, okay, what do you want me to do now? Okay, I'll do that with this. You want to put that in me? Okay, okay. What do you, and you just bending, you just like whatever you want. And so like for me, I don't like either of those two options. And I've been in the fear option. I've never been in the option of, okay, what do you want me? That just doesn't exist. My father raised me different. So I'm not going to do the fear thing. So instead you rub your hands together. Okay, what's my role? And then get busy.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that's really coming clear to me is that there's only one. I think we get caught up in hierarchies. You know, people who are enlightened versus people who are not, people who are on a higher frequency or not, you know, all of that. We still divide one another. What's becoming clear to me is that there's one frequency, and that's love.
That's right.
There's no duality. It's all love. Start there. What if it was all love? And what if we all tapped into that? And I know it sounds pat, you know, after decades, you know, of people writing about love and singing about love. The Beatles, all you need is love. They got it. They got it. Right? Why is that not catching on yet? Because I don't even believe there's such a thing as light and dark. There's no such thing as shadow. I mean, it's an illusion. It's all illusion. And so if we focus on just that one thing, that frequency that we're tapping into, there's no higher consciousness or lower consciousness. There's one consciousness, and that is all of it. That's one thing. We are the universe. We are the multiverse. We are everything we can see, touch, taste, and feel, and we are everything that we cannot. That's what my theater company is all about. The Folklore Theater Company. We explore that liminal space between worlds, between the seen and the unseen and the human experience through art. Art is the bridge. And yet, what are we doing? We're taking art away from kids in their foundation years to put them in a box, standardized testing.
Yeah, now we're putting a lot of stuff into this AI so that art is going to become even less, you know what I mean? So
that depends on your perspective, because I had an interview. If you look back earlier this season, I had a co-host who was one of the like cutting edge first people developing AI. And I asked him, I said, are the fears about AI true that people have? Because there's a lot of fear around it right now. And how is that serving humanity to be in fear? Well, a fearful people is a controllable people, for one thing. And those of us that are living fearlessly, such as you and me, and countless others, we get that. And so what he said was, which I found very interesting, he said that AI there are going to be people using it for nefarious purposes. That's a given. If we're talking about the fear of it taking over jobs, yes, that's founded. But in eliminating those jobs that it takes human beings months, maybe years to accomplish, that AI can accomplish in a moment, he said what's going to happen is that the human intellect, as we've understood it, is going to become passé. And what that's going to do is open us up to being more creative than we've ever been. And that AI is a support, collaborative tool for human creativity. Just leaving that on the table, because again, it's a big mystery. We have no idea, you know, we all think of the Terminator, you know, scenario, but I don't know.
well, I just look at like the videos that are being made through AI right now, and they're so good. You know, I mean, some of these animated, I mean, that's what when you're looking at them, it's like, wow, I've only seen something like that in a medicine journey, you know, and
right.
and yeah, and good, and also, I just think about, yeah, the art, the creator within the person. How does that, what happens then? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see it play itself out. As a writer, I go, well, is he going to be able to write a book like mine? And I hope that. I can't imagine, because that's very much coming through me through something bigger. You know what I mean? So, yeah,
Well,
for
but
sure.
how might it support your work as a writer?
Yeah.
It may open you up to different perspectives, but you're the one who gets to choose. You're the one who gets to turn it on or off to sort
Yeah.
out. And in the physical state, we are monkeys, and it is monkey see, monkey do. And so when we see something beautiful, when we see something artistically excellent, we want to recreate it. We want to make it in our own way. We want to create it in our own image, right? We want to apply our own creativity to see, can I replicate it, or can I enhance it? Can I expand it? That to me is the creative spark in all of us.
Shadow and Light LLC was established by Dave Roberts and Reverend Patty Farino, co-authors of When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister. Their mission is to empower individuals to transcend life's challenges by integrating spiritual practices with psychology to achieve peace. They are available for individualized spiritual counseling, virtual or in-person book club meetings, or presentations and workshops to universities, organizations, and other interested groups. For further information, visit psychologyprofessorandminister.com.
And what's originality really? Are there any original concepts? Or is everything informed by what's come before, and who's put it in the book? Who we're learning now that history is not what we've been taught. And that's why I started a folkloric theater company, because the stories are dying, the real stories, the primordial stories that we sat around a campfire under the stars, our ancestors, wondering in a childlike way about what makes those shiny things in the sky and the heavens, and what makes flowers the colors that they are, and what makes trees grow, and do they have a soul, and all of these ponderings that humanity has done from the beginning. We are no different than our most ancient ancestors. We are one. We are one people. We are one species. We are one energy, one frequency. Boil it down, people, to the lowest common denominator, right? And we are finding, instinctively, what I'm finding is that intellectualism is becoming passé. Nationalism is becoming passé, right? The borders that humanity has placed around countries, around states, regions, turning rivers into walls that separate and divide people. I think we're getting back to an understanding that this is a very, very tiny rock we all live on, and we are less than microbial in our scale. You can fit 14 planet Earths in the North Pole of Saturn. The biggest picture of Saturn we've ever seen can fit on a computer screen or a mobile phone, look at the scale of my phone next to my head, right? We have such an arrogant, like I said earlier, it's the human arrogance of our importance and our bigness. And yet that comes from dividing ourselves from the everything, from the one.
Mm-hmm.
When we tap into our sovereignty, not as an individual separate from every one person, not as a personality, but our sovereignty as the source of creation, period, which is love that begets itself perpetually, right? You've said a few times that the world is falling apart, right? Has the world ever been together since humans emerged? Has it ever really been together to where it can fall apart? Everything's just precisely as it's meant to be. Otherwise, it would be otherwise. What do we do with that? Now what?
Yeah. And, there's a process happening right now of things falling apart in a way that maybe we haven't seen in a long, long, long time.
Mhm.
And it could really equate to suffering for people, And so keeping that in mind, also, how do we quell that suffering, or maybe we don't, These are the questions I ask myself every day, like, how far is this thing going to go,
Right.
And I believe that these systems that we've been using, as they've served us, are now becoming obsolete. And there are some players out there that have a system that they want to impose. That I don't know if you saw the Russell Brand. Eckhart Tolle was on Russell Brand not too long ago, and he said it to the camera. I'm paraphrasing. He says, "We do not accept the world that Klaus Schwab is creating for us right now. We are creating a new earth." So, for a guy like that to say something, it's like it's not a conspiracy anymore. Especially when these guys come out and they actually announce it.
Yeah.
So that is, that's real. And there's something, yes, I understand non-duality, meaning that's the ultimate truth beyond the illusion that we're living in. But in the illusion, which is also has a sense of realness for many people, there is something other than, right? So there's where there lies the struggle sometimes with everything. And you have a good point. When has the world ever been completely together? No, but you're my age and you grew up in a time where it was pretty cool. I mean, you rode your bicycle around and got in trouble with your friends.
Everybody and their mother is nostalgic for times. But we grew up in the Vietnam era. There was brutal, horrible things happening all over the world that we were unaware of. Jonestown, everyone drinking Kool-Aid and mass suicide. I mean, that all happened when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
It was a brutal world that we were protected from in one degree or another because we didn't have social media, because we didn't have AI, because we were left to our own devices to go and run around the neighborhood until the street lights came on, and then Red Rover and, come back home, and eat your SpaghettiOs, right? But there was a lot of, and I think now that's certainly, I see the romanticizing of our childhood. I think everyone does it. People who grew up in the 50s romanticize it, unless they were in a concentration camp, in the 40s, the Japanese internment camps, or in the 30s and 40s, in the Holocaust. Everyone's going to romanticize their time. And again, it's illusory. Time is an illusion. Time is not real. It only lives in your imagination. For better and for worse. We can't go back and fix anything or change anything that happened in the world. It's gotten us to this point. Your entire biography, all the good and all the bad, all the suffering, right? Think of the suffering that you went through. Think of the suffering your mother went through. Think of the suffering your father went through. His parents, their parents, all the way back to our common ancestor, mitochondrial Eve, that we're all connected to, right? This woman in East Africa thousands of years ago. We know that that's true. And all the suffering, all the struggle and strife, all the horror and inhumanity, all the love as well, has brought us, you and me, brother, to this moment. It's prepared us for this conversation and to share this conversation globally. All of it. That's what it was meant for. It was for this moment. That's a simple truth. That's what I mean by boiling it down to the lowest common denominator. Now what? Now, just likewise, the future is in our imaginations. And if we can put our heads together and look for what's possible, which is everything, right? And we're putting out that frequency that everything is love already. And if it's not love, and if it doesn't feel or look like love or smell like love or taste like love, it ain't love. It's something else. But at the root of it, you can always trace it back to love. And that love, for me, equates with sovereignty. That means all bets are off. Everything is possible, but you have to believe it and you have to know it. Not just believe it, you have to know it. Scientifically know it. And so I can't believe it's already been almost an hour. One of the things that I've been doing every episode this season has been to put my co-hosts on the spot and ask you to leave a question for the next co-host intuitively without knowing who they're going to be. Think of a question that comes out of your depths that you would like to hear somebody answer. Think of who it might be. You don't know. It's a mystery, right? Like everything else. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to ask you the question that the last co-host left just for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah?
That's going to be.
The question is, and take this as you will, that was part of the instructions with this. What grows in your garden? Isn't that a great question?
Mm-hmm. Well, what grows in my garden? The continuing desire to help others find this thing called spiritual awakening. It grows and it grows and it grows and it gets stronger and it never goes away. That's what grows in my garden, to be honest with you.
We must have the same garden.
Okay.
Because that's what's growing in mine too.
Mm-hmm.
Great answer. And here it is. You know, we've achieved that, I think, in this hour. It's been a great conversation.
Yes.
What's your question for the next person?
What would be your advice to the many people out there or who are really going through it right now because of what's happening on the world stage at this moment? That would be like, what would their advice be?
How to handle it?
Yeah, how to get through it, how to handle it. What would they say to these people? Because right now, let's be clear. I mean, there's a lot of people suffering on planet Earth right now, maybe more so than ever in a lot of ways because of the financial stuff. And everybody I talk to is like they're hurting a bit financially. And I don't know if we've ever lived in the United States where the majority of the people don't have $400 in their savings account. It's a hell of a thing, right? That's a real number.
Yeah.
The middle class is being decimated. So what advice do you have for them? I'll leave that.
Beautiful. Do you have an answer to your own question?
Find God.
Oh, wait, he's right here. She's right here.
That's right.
We're right here. We're right here.
It's not far away as you thought, but get that, some house. And I was a raised atheist, and then I had an experience, and it shifted everything. So I don't know how, but maybe just to know that, remember that you were that baby, that you've seen other people's babies, they come out and they're just pure love. That's what you are at your core. Where did that come from, huh? That's right. That came from something that is unexplainable. It's beyond our understanding, but you are it. And start there. How's that?
Beautiful. Now what?
Now what? Exactly.
Well, you're it. And I really appreciate getting to know you. And I'll put the links to your books and your upcoming in the description box, and also put a link to Eckhart Tolle and a couple other things. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this hour with me. And I feel like I met a soul brother.
That's right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate having me on and everything that you're doing. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. Well, we'll keep sharing. We'll keep sharing that vibe.
All right.
Hope to talk to you again soon.
Take care. Namaste.
You've been listening to Season 4 of the Lost Traveler podcast with Henry Cameron Allen. Visit me online at henryallen.org. Thank you to my guests, and thank you for tuning in. Let's keep striving for a better world together.